Greetings and welcome to Scalawags, episode 31, a podcast where we don't know what we're going to say until it comes out of our mouth. We don't plan the timing on things until the music starts after we start speaking. I'm Daniel Spiewak, one of your hosts.
I'm Josh Surrett, or Pirate Face, whichever one you prefer.
Heather, go!
I don't have a pirate face. I should probably find one. I'm Bill.
Yeah, I'm Dick Wall. I was wondering how Daniel's description at the beginning of not knowing what we're going to say until it comes out of our mouths differs from any other moment in our lives.
I don't know about you, but I script my day very precisely.
Oh, do you? Okay. Yeah, no, I don't.
Yeah, I just the exception is I have this giant carve out for like, okay, Scalawags happens here.
That's the what's the word I'm looking for? The unscripted or the what do they call it? The whole acting thing where you just make it up as you go along.
Improv.
Improv. It's the improvisational slot of the day.
Yes.
Improv goes here.
Time to be spontaneous.
Yes, improv goes here into this hour.
Yeah, this hour is untyped.
Yes. Yes. I cast this hour to any.
Oh, God.
Oh dear, and the nerdy jokes are coming already.
We lost all of our viewers with that. That's
Well, most of our the viewers that we lost thought we were a podcast about pirates, so...
I don't think I've seen Heather wear a pirate hat, virtual or otherwise, to this point. She makes a pretty convincing pirate, doesn't she?
Yeah, well, it was an effort to fit in with Josh. I felt, too unlike co-hosts.
You know, don't take this the wrong way, Heather, but Google Plus does a really good job of detecting your face, and I don't know why that is, but it's just a very detectable face.
Yeah, I guess so. The only weird thing about it is that it seems to be pulsating a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, it's brain power.
Yeah, maybe. Like
I'm going to go with the sinister mad clown from outer space look today, I think.
All right. So we have all decided on our looks.
Yes.
All right, so let's get started. We actually didn't prepare a lot of news for this because I think we wanted mostly to just do a discussion on things. But Dick, you had a few things. Do you want to bring them up?
Yeah, I think originally I said, I think it was a conversation you and I were having, Josh. I was doing some Scaladoc work this week, and there was a few things I was like asking and wondering, and somehow this turned into we should talk about this on the show, so that's what we're doing. But the couple of things that I hit in particular, doing the Scaladoc, the primary one, actually, it's sort of two things. One of them is I think that package objects, the Scaladoc on package objects is sadly underused. It's a wonderful place to put API overviews, and people don't seem to do that. So I wrote up one of those, and then I deployed it using I had a bunch of stuff I was trying to deploy using, what was it? SBT doc or whatever it was, the SBT plugin.
SBT site. Yeah.
SBT site, yep.
Yeah.
And from there, it got me thinking, well, my package, I did a lovely job of documenting up the package object, and then when you hit the site that's deployed on Git, it doesn't go to that one, it goes to the root package. And of course, there's nothing there. And I'm like, it seems like kind of you want to direct people to your API's root package, and that was just one of those features that I thought, that might be nice to have. But from that grew this whole conversation of, what else it needs, and it just seems like there's a lot of low-hanging fruit in Scaladoc that could be tackled.
I'm gonna throw out one thing that I've said on the show before. So you brought up the issue of you have an API that you want to document, you throw it in the package object, because I think in a lot of functional design, it's the combinations that make an API and the interaction between things, and you need this higher level documentation. And there's a problem with JavaDoc of where do you put stuff like that? Where does it exist?
Well, okay. So pro tip: JavaDoc actually has package level documentation that no one ever uses because everyone forgets that feature is even in JavaDoc.
Right. But so package objects are kind of similar to that in that you're putting it in the package as package level documentation. But I don't know, or I haven't decided myself, is if this is the right thing, or if a user guide is the right way to go. Like I think this is a fundamental thing where your documentation is not it's not quite API, but it's like how to use all the things together. And we've been putting it in package object because in the Scaladoc world, that's the best place to put it. And it'd be nice if it were better and more efficient, but what you're really writing is you're writing like a user's guide, and you're putting it in the package.
So I think it needs to live in the code, right? Anytime documentation can live with the code, it's more likely to get attention than if it's not, I think. It's certainly still not 100%.
Yeah.
But...
I don't know about that. Not always.
No?
No, I mean, what if you have no idea how to do, I don't know, just no idea at all how to use futures, or it's not that you want to see a menu of methods that you can use, but you want to understand fundamentally what they are and what they do, like that they're, suitable things, are they not? Do they do things concurrently? What are they? And I mean, you wouldn't get that from API documentation exactly. So I mean, if this sort of top-level package level documentation that you just described, where it's more of a, I don't know, what did you call that? You said this usage guide or something like this. I mean, okay, that would be a good place to put something like that, but the convention is to not put it there. The convention is to have 10,000 different blog articles explaining these things instead, and then pointing to the documentation.
The convention is not to have it at all, or to throw it.
Ideally, no documentation.
Yeah, right.
So I'm actually really happy that Dick is throwing this in a package object, because oftentimes it just doesn't exist, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, so I think a package object is definitely preferable to no documentation, but just the way that I use Scaladoc and the way that I use source code on GitHub and the way that I use user guides, for me personally, that sort of documentation really is best in a user guide, or even in the random million blog posts, because thanks to the magic of Google, those are very easily findable. But what I can't find easily through Scaladoc is I have no idea how this library works or where to even start. Where should I go, right? That's what user guides are really great for, because they not only tell you the interaction between the pieces, but they tell you that the pieces exist. And then you can go to the Scaladoc for more specifics.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like
only problem with that is that every time we release Scala or any library, forget about Scala, you have the problem of then having to make sure that that link points to something that hasn't changed. So this is back to the point where Dick is like, well, we should have then this documentation in your code, so that if the code changes, then the documentation should also be obviously changed. But
the ability to link between things, like that user's guide in the package object, has a lot of benefits, because you go to the package object, you get your user's guide, and you have all the links to all of the relevant Scaladoc right there, and it just all works because it's in the same tool. Whereas once you start crossing over the boundary of we have a tool to write user's guide and a tool to write Scaladoc, now the links might not work together. How do you link from this to this and share it across different sites? How do I make sure it downloads into IntelliJ and I can open it? That kind of crap, right? It's
so this is where I put on my alter ego, Bill Venners, and contradict myself. Because if I was to contradict myself as Dick Wall, clearly that would be insane.
I don't understand.
But if I just pretend to be somebody else.
Now, what I was
going to say, the downside to package objects, and I think it's sort of, I think Daniel mentioned this, but I think it's sort of grown from that. People didn't know this feature existed in Java. A lot of people still don't know to go and look at package objects in Scala. Did I say Java before, or I always get that?
You're correct thus far. Continue.
Okay, good. I quite often interchange the two. It's like my dad used to call me my sister's name and my sister my name. It's just yeah, exactly. Just like you do with Bill and Dick. Yes, exactly. Anyway, so one of the problems is that people forget the package doc is there, so people don't go looking for it, so people don't supply it. And that bleeds over into maintenance. When people change the classes, they forget to go and look at the package documentation and update it there as well. And so there's not really good answers here. I mean, it's still living with the code, but it still falls behind if people don't remember to go and check the package doc. We've gone into this mindset of not thinking about the package docs.
Forget about the package docs, actually. You also, I mean, there exists plenty of situations where somebody changes some code, you have a method, you change what it does, and then you ignore the documentation sitting right above the code that you changed. People do this.
Yep.
Well,
Yeah, I
so-
mean,
That's because it's italic. If you stop making it italic,
if you use a non-italic font in your editor, then it's more visible. I mean, it's documentation, right? I mean, this is a cultural problem, and I don't mean like a broad cultural problem with like, programmers. I mean, it's just anything that's not constrained with the code, anything that's not something that you have to change in order to make this unit test pass. Is this this is the troll raccoon says no?
No, this is you have to constrain it. You have to keep it. You have to keep them together.
Well, together is not enough though. So how many times have you gone into a code base that's been refactored a couple times and found completely dead code, a method that isn't referenced by anything anymore, or like abstract something which doesn't need to be abstracted anymore and can just be trivially inlined? Like, how many times does that happen? A lot, right? And that's code.
I would also like to throw out that I'm usually the cause of that.
Yeah, so how many times have I gone into Josh's code and found that? Way too many times. So the point being that, programmers, especially when they're under a deadline, are very inherently lazy and like, okay, we're just going to get this done that's necessary to make it work, and the documentation is technical debt, but except it's not technical debt, it's just debt.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly feel the easiest way to get good at API design is to make sure that if you were going to use your own library and were being as lazy as possible, that you would still do the right thing. That's how to make an API, right? And the problem is with documentation is it requires rigor, and that's why it always falls behind. I don't know how you make it easy to document. Like, how do you make it so that it's not work, that it's the right thing to do initially, besides require types?
Well, from that point of view, I have to say, I mean, Scaladoc's a bit, it's a little janky in some places, but overall, once you know a few basic rules, it's actually pretty quick to write that stuff. Once you know triple curly braces, I'm a big fan of code examples in there to describe the API. Once you know triple curly braces drop you into Scala code, you're like, yeah, I'll just a code sample is worth 1,000 descriptive words, so I'll just chuck that in there instead.
So
yeah.
Yeah, on that topic, I just kind of want to get like a general feeling for if I'm the only person who does this, but I completely, like, I have learned way too many wiki-style markup syntaxes in my life, and I think I've reached my quota, and so I literally can't remember Scaladoc at all. Like, I don't remember the syntax, and so I just write Markdown. Like, I literally write Markdown in Scaladoc.
Yeah. So the Scaladoc notation was developed before Markdown even existed, I think.
Yep.
So I don't know what year it was, but Markdown appeared in like 2010 or something like this, and Scaladoc 2 or whatever had some other notation by the time Markdown appeared. So
yeah,
sorry.
Rain from the heavens.
Actually, yes. Like Scaladoc was a forerunner, right? Like it sort of predated. The Scaladoc Markdown predated Markdown, so.
Yeah, no, the Scala. I remember enough about the syntax to know that it's closest to like MediaWiki markup syntax, but it's different enough that it kind of screwed with my head. I don't know. I truly can't remember it anymore. And so I figured that if people load my Scaladoc and they see in the rendered HTML star or something or other star, or like triple quote or triple backtick something or other, they can mentally translate that into formatted whatever they want, because I am not going to bother anymore.
Well, so, I mean, one of the things that we said on the way into this is, in an ideal world, and goodness knows, I've got a whole lot more to say about this later, but in an ideal world, we'd be able to fix all this stuff right away, and I think one of the things that would be really nice is, like, closer convention to Markdown for Scaladoc. So that, because everyone and their dog knows Markdown these days, so if we made it really concise and easy to use Markdown in Scaladoc, I don't know that would get people writing documentation. I'm not that naive to think that that'll just instantly turn the corner, but it's one less barrier along the way. I mean, Daniel would, right?
Yeah, well, at least my users would have formatted documentation. So Daniel's users would be appreciative of this feature. Daniel probably wouldn't notice.
Daniel, all you have to remember is open triple curly braces and close triple curly braces.
Oh my God.
That's the one rule. That's the one rule you have to hold, and you can write all the code samples you like then.
So, on the subject of like Scaladoc features, so one of the things that I've always wanted from Scaladoc is better ability to see like what implicit methods are available on certain types and things like that. And I've been told that one of the major reasons why this doesn't exist in Scaladoc is the information is not in a reasonably accessible format coming out of Scala C. And so there's no way that it can be done. I mean, I don't know if that's true or not, or
You mean like being able to see implicitly added members and things like that, or what?
yeah, I basically want two things. I want to be able to see implicitly added members that are available like within the library that it found somewhere within this compilation unit, or ideally if I can link it to some other library, say, okay, in this compilation unit or that one, I want to be able to see that with the type, and I want to be able to see like implicit values that are accessible for a particular type. So this is the functor use case and the functor syntax use case, if you can think about it in those terms.
So the implicitly added member business has been around since 2.10.
Oh, I just don't use Scaladoc then, clearly.
Yeah, it's actually, there's even a nice little visual diagram that shows, so we have this like visual hierarchy, of superclasses and then subclasses, but then you also have like visualized implicitly added stuff or converted stuff. So you can even see this.
Stand by while I generate Scaladoc.
No, Daniel, you need both types in Scaladoc to see it, though. You need both.
Yes, you do. It doesn't link across to another project or anything really fancy like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's really, really, really nice, but you need both sides of the implicit. So you need the type that's being annotated and the implicit in the same run.
That's a good argument.
I'm running SBT doc on ScalaZ stream right now, and this will be our litmus test.
That might not do anything useful because I think all of your implicits are defined in ScalaZ and not in ScalaZ stream.
Yeah.
But,
no, so there's a whole bunch of syntax stuff that's so for type inference reasons, a lot of the methods on process are not actually on process; they're on other things that are sort of implicitly added. So that was the use case I was thinking of, but it sounds like this actually works for that, and I just haven't been paying attention.
It should, yeah.
Are you guys seeing my screen?
No.
Well, we're seeing you.
Yeah.
That didn't work then.
Is your screen a webcam?
It turns out after selecting the thing you want to share, you actually have to hit the share button as well.
Yes.
I was unclear on that. Okay, so now you should be, right? Let's make this a bit bigger here. Right, so a couple of things I think a lot of people don't know about this is like, Daniel, did you know about the token view? Like the all tokens view?
This is the only part of Scaladoc I use, by the way. I just want to.
It's super useful. This. So
I
if you've
just
got
do that, do Control F.
So I know about the all tokens view. I never remember how to get to it.
just the letters, the number and the letters along the top here. Like if you want to look at all the R methods that you can find, you just click on the R, and then you can hit Control F or Command F if you're on one of these Apple-flavored platforms, and then you can type like reverse, for example, and it takes you to all the definitions of reverse.
Yeah. Is there a way that you can do a search over, can you do a search over all tokens, not just one starting with a particular letter?
I don't know of one to do that. Heather?
So I think the trouble is basically how to make sense of the information and separate it out. So yeah. I wasn't involved in the original design of this Scaladoc, so I can't tell you exactly what the motivation was, but what I've inferred over time is that, most, like 9 times out of 10, obviously 9 times out of 10 if you're not Heather, you're wanting to look up something considered an entity, and an entity is a class, a package object, an object, companion object, a trait, something like this, something that's not, that doesn't have members. That is not a member itself. It's, so for example, you can't look up type aliases, but you can look up, traits or classes or whatever. So inner classes you can't look up, for example, in the left panel. So the idea is that in the sort of top level you can look up in this across all letters or whatever, which is what you actually know you can find in that little search bar. But I think the idea for separating it out was basically trying to present it in a way that would make some kind of sense, because I think that you get kind of sort of a cluster mess of nonsense if you have like every operator, every method, every type alias, anything that can sort of pop up displaying in that left panel. So I think this was an idea, a way to do some kind of like filtering out of the noise. So then basically the two sort of ways that you can sort of search things is one, filter through all of the entities, so traits, objects, classes, whatever, and then two, just look up anything by letter, so anything at all. So even like inner class. Well, I'm not sure inner classes, but type aliases and things like that with the letters.
Vowels and defs and stuff like that.
Yeah, any kind of member.
Hey, what does any to string add do? You should click on that
one
again.
So, I guess what I want for the all tokens view is something basically like ctags, but in Scaladoc, right? I want to be able to press, mash the finding button thing, and then mash things onto the keyboard, and I want to find the symbols that match the mash, which is what ctags or Sublime symbol search allows me to do, that sort of thing. Are you looking for Zeal?
I was looking for Zeal and Dash. I wondered if you'd hit these before.
No.
Seen them before. Okay, so Zeal is Dash is the Mac equivalent. Zeal is the Linux one. And these let you suck in all sorts of different documentation artifacts, not just for Scaladoc, but all sorts of stuff. And then it makes the whole thing searchable on your machine. So this is also it's also offline. So if you're working on a plane, it can be very useful. Although Southwest has Wi-Fi these days, but that's by the by. So yeah, Zeal and Dash are also worth looking at from that point of view.
Yes, but they have the disadvantage of not being the thing that is linked from the top bar of the project page that I'm looking at.
This is true. I mean, yes, all of these concerns are valid.
So I can give a little bit more. Like I said, I wasn't involved in the original design of this tool, so I'm not the absolute source of information on this. But what I have inferred about why like exactly what you said, why you can't just search for any sort of symbol that most closely matches what you actually typed into the filter. To be honest, I think it was mostly JavaScript and people trying to use JavaScript at the time, and that perceived idea that JavaScript is slow and that filtering through too many symbols would just kill your browser. Sometimes it can, but I mean the point is that the whole standard library, the whole Scala distribution might be way too many symbols and just kill your browser if you're going to be filtering through them. So I think that there are all kinds of intelligent little data structures that you can come up with to make this filtering easier, but I think at the time it wasn't really obvious. It was like 2006 or 7 or something.
Yeah. So I have a good...
Sorry, go on, Daniel.
No, I was going to say that I have a good example of where the implicit adding thing breaks down, because I didn't think I was completely oblivious that I had entirely missed this. But I can show you. So let me actually share my screen here. And
remember to hit the share button, which I didn't do.
Yes.
There we go.
Hi, Bill.
Hey, that's me.
All right, here we go. Sublime. So this is Scala Z stream, right? And if I go to like source syntax, this is an implicit class that's available. It's within the package object for process, or not the package object, but the companion object. So it's always available, but it's only available on processes of task. And it brings in some things from YOPS, which is unimportant, but one of the things you can see in here is like, oh, there's a toSignal function, right? So the toSignal method is available on any process of task. If I go over to the Scaladoc, which I just generated, there is no toSignal that I can find linked to process. And I could probably go to the handy thing here and find it here, but there's no indication that this source syntax thing is actually applied to process, other than the constructor, right? So this is kind of the use case that I'm.
Oh, but that's because that implicit isn't always available, right? It's
right.
It's not triggering the filter since it has that one of the types is constrained for when it's available.
Right, but what I'd like is, I mean, most of the implicits that I work with on a daily basis are partially constrained in that way. So I'd like a better way of linking that over.
Yeah.
I
I don't
wanted
know.
to throw in. It's
I'm not
unrelated.
constrained, man. I
Oh,
don't like constraints.
More raccoons.
It's unrelated to Scaladoc, but I wanted to chuck in just in case we forgot to mention it. And it's one of those things. Either everybody's like, oh, I know all about that, or they've never heard of it before. If you use IntelliJ, Shift is like your new best friend for stuff like this. Have you seen that or tried it? Just
No,
hit
what is
Shift
that?
twice. It's basically search for anything. So you double tap Shift, and it brings up a little dialog box, and start typing, and it'll just find anything it can find that might be related to what you're typing.
So
That's
what
how
you
I met
mean
my
is
wife,
basically
actually.
something like
We did-
this.
we did
where
shift,
I do something like this, or apply.
Yeah, you can do the same sort of thing in Sublime. It's very much like that. And the other thing I was going to say was talking about Sublime, and not just Sublime, but this should have been in the show notes, and I just forgot to put it in there. You guys are familiar that Enzyme is like revived and
Yes.
chugging along again? This is very exciting. There's even there's a working Sublime version of it. It's not fully there yet, but it does actually work in Sublime Text 3. It works in Atom, as well as Emacs, of course. And I've heard it said that somebody's got it working in Vim too. So all the important bases are covered.
Yeah. So the Vim, knowing how the Vim plugin architecture works, it's probably not working well in Vim, but I'm sure they have some functionality there. The development progress on the Enzyme Sublime plugin has been really rapid.
Yeah.
The last time I looked at it was like 2.5 weeks ago, which means they've probably solved everything and have worked on, moved on to a moon landing. But the last time I tried it, I was not able to get it up and running in any reasonable way. And this is coming from someone who used to maintain an Enzyme plugin. But I know that they're working really hard at it. It's very active development, so that is super exciting.
Yeah. It's really good. Thank you. It's a lot of it's Rory Graves and Sam Halliday. That's right, Sam Halliday are doing it. So really good stuff. There's a lot of people on that though. Just check out the Gitter channel to see all of the exciting progress that's being made. It's very cool. So yeah. All right.
So we.
Any other wishes for Scaladoc?
So I still like I always have trouble figuring out when and what to Scaladoc versus write actual documentation for. For most of my projects now, I've actually defaulted to have all of my documentation be in Markdown and use something separate. Mostly because when it comes to APIs and learning what methods do, I'd rather have people read my code. Now that sounds terrible, but in Scala, I feel like it's not as bad as it was in Java. In Java, reading the code meant actually having to physically compile the stupid thing in your head for a while. In Scala, the methods generally, if you have a well-behaved project, aren't too bad to figure out. And with a little bit of documentation at the top, you can figure it out very, 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 very quickly. So I don't know if this is like me being evil as a person now, or maybe I'm that old crotchety guy who doesn't want to use Scaladoc or whatever. I don't know.
I was going to make a joke that you sound like the typical Scala developer when faced with the difficult choice of whether to document either in Markdown or Scaladoc. They choose option 3 and do neither.
No, I do Markdown. Like for SBT, we have a user's guide and we have a developer guide, and then I put a whole bunch of code comments. Whole ton of them. I'm the guy who gets yelled at because I'll fix a bug, and there's like a to-do comment to fix the bug, like right above the code
you
I
forget
touched.
to remove the to-do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
have
doing
a whole ton of comments, or I add a bunch of comments into my code, and I generally write Scaladoc. I just never look at them. I would rather read the Scaladoc in the code than on the Scaladoc page. Because generally I need to almost immediately go from what it says it does to actually what it does.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Like my primary Scaladoc reader at this point is the GitHub source view. that is actually how I peruse libraries now.
Yeah,
That said, when I was teaching courses, Scaladoc was life. Like that was a great way to show people a bunch of methods and let them discover what you could do. You didn't want to show them code at that point in time. So
it's interesting. When we do the training, one of the things we always demonstrate is not just effective use of Scaladoc, but using Scaladoc to click through to the underlying source code. And we start to get people used to this idea of if they ask something that, every time we do the training, there's somebody asks something we don't know. But we're like, let's go find out. Let's go take a look at the source code. And we get them used to going to Scaladoc, finding the class, clicking through to the source code, finding it there. And it gets them into that sort of practice of, oh, right, it's all right there. I can actually go and see what it does. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I find myself when I in terms of writing Scaladoc, right, and choosing what to document, Josh, I find myself throwing Scaladoc on anything that any method that I feel like the semantics are sort of unclear or it needs further explanation, but I'm not actually writing that Scaladoc necessarily for my users. These days I treat Scaladoc, especially method level Scaladoc, a lot more like just another comment, right? And it's just semantically clear that this comment relates to the entire function. And I'll throw this on private methods too, or even inner functions, like whatever I think it's appropriate on. I just put it there, just like I would put another comment.
Well, a couple of the things I like to do, and usually this happens when you're open sourcing a project. You run through, you want to make it nice before you kick it out into the world. So you go through, add some Scaladoc, tidy things up. And one of the things I like to do is make sure that everything that is public as part of the public API has a meaningful comment on it. And by meaningful, not just basically repeating what the method name is and listing off the parameters. And if it is a case of that, what I tend to do is look at it and go, does this thing actually need to be public? And if I can't come up with a convincing explanation as to why it's there, then it's probably a good candidate for making private before the API goes out there. So, and that's great because everyone wins from that. You get a smaller API, there's less stuff comes up when you hit Dart. There's all that sort of stuff that you kind of streamline everything.
I have to say that I think just pedagogically, I think I like what Josh was saying a little bit earlier when he was saying, well, I just write Markdown. So I kind of like that approach because I have this sneaking suspicion that this sort of standard Java thinking way of documenting libraries is by going through your code base. You take some class, you have some Java file associated with it, and then you just go one by one through the members, and then you explain what they do, right? You read the code yourself, and then you explain that somehow in prose, and then you do this for your whole entire project, and that is supposed to be the way that people understand your how to use something. So my example,
that's a quote, well-documented code base.
Right. So my example of futures is very nicely illustrates that just kind of going through and reading like a la carte all of the little methods that you could call on whatever, they don't really teach you about all the different stupid things that you can do, asynchronously, right? So it's more like a philosophy that you kind of have to learn and read from some sort of user guide or some sort of overview style documentation, in my opinion.
I want to throw this out there. I think.
Are you looking at the Scalawags channel? Because I've just caught up with a whole bunch of stuff on the Scalawags channel.
I'm starting to. It's kind of awesome. Michael Jackson eating popcorn. Anyway.
Oh wow!
So, I'm going to. I want to throw out there the Java mindset. One of the reasons why JavaDoc works so well for Java is there's only one way to write elegant Java code, really. There's almost only one way to design a project in Java. So all you really need to know is what the methods are, because you're going to be taking the same approach to things as other people. Yeah. There's not like a lot of diversity in the style, the idioms, the patterns you use. Whereas in Scala, you have a lot of diversity. So you first have to tell people which idiom you're using for this library, and then you can tell them what the methods do, and they can figure out what to do from that. If that makes sense. Like it's more of a problem in Scala because of some of that freedom, I think. But anyway, I also want to say, Heather, that I'm glad that you used pedagogy in a sentence correctly.
Oh,
that was impressive.
You just increased our rating on iTunes. We're now listed higher.
Good.
We just got the intellectual tag put on us.
Great.
For the use of that. Yes. No. I'll address the Scalawags channel, which is that there is a lot to look at when we're doing this, so I didn't notice all the Scalawag stuff. John Pretty, don't worry, we have got your Scala World in as a news item, and these guys will back me up that we actually had that as a news item before you said it.
Let's actually mention it right now, and then
let's do it.
A ton of questions on Google Plus and on the Scalawags channel. So let's jump into those then. How's that sound?
Sounds like a plan to me.
How do we see questions on G Plus? Come on, Daniel. Come on. You click Q&A on the left.
I literally have no idea how technology works.
I always forget this too.
You just click on the hidden little Q&A button. It's not visible.
Too many
It's
inputs.
not visible in any way, so you should know it exists.
There's like so many people asking so many things.
Yeah,
I know.
We'll go through these one at a time here.
Go for it, Josh.
Anyway, why don't you mention Scala World, and to those on the Scalawags channel, ask on G+.
Yep, so Scala World is, I don't know if you guys remember Scala Tribes back in the day. Scala Tribes was where you went to find like-minded Scala people to hang out with, back when there weren't many of us around. And it kind of died. I don't think anyone's really quite sure even who manages it or who to contact anymore about Scala Tribes. But anyway, Scala.world, which is literally just the URL Scala.world, is sort of like a revamped Tribes now. It shows you a map, it finds out where you are, and it suggests a user group for you.
Bill, this is a wonderful announcement, but you actually have the wrong John Pretty project.
Oh no, that's right. What is it? It's Scala...
Yes, Scala Space is what you're
Scala
thinking
Space,
of.
that's
Scala Space.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scala World is a Scala conference.
The conference that's happening in the Lake District. That's right. Forgive me for getting the two of them mixed up.
And John, I don't know what, there must be like a deluge of people going to your website right now because it's not loading for me. So, through the...
Here, I have been able to successfully load it. So here,
if you can share the website with us, like in your...
These are the lovely speakers. John did this really cool thing where he engaged.
That is really nice.
That's the wrong one still.
Yeah, that's the wrong one. We want Scala.space.
Oh, we want Scala Space? Okay.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, this is one I can't load.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to frame this now by getting it. I'm going to make up for my earlier gaffe by saying, if you want to look at the beautiful real world, go to Scala.world, which is in the Lake District, and you'll see just an amazing view, a panacea of beauty. And if you want to see the actual world represented as a map, go to Scala.space, where you can see all of the Scala places around.
So I think what's really interesting, here's North America and the Scala meetups, here's Europe and the Scala meetups.
Well, hold on.
North America has to get its act together.
Look at this. Here is South Africa.
Yeah.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah. I mean, come on, South America. Let's get it together, guys. Let's get it together.
More meetups in the Amazon.
No, but it's really cool. I mean, just look at this. Look at how many Scala meetups there are in the world. It's pretty amazing.
Where in Japan?
I don't know. Let's take a look. I think there's
I'm reminded seeing this of the Whopper 2000 from War Games and Let's Play Global Thermonuclear Warfare.
So things that I'm observing from this, number one, we don't have a meetup on all continents yet. Someone get on that. Antarctica.
Guys, right here.
And there are
big white thing calling you.
Yeah, exactly. It's enormous at the bottom of the screen because of our projection. I'm sure that's completely accurate. And there's a lot of space for meetups there. Plenty of venues. And also Greenland. We're missing Greenland. Very conspicuous.
Iceland.
Like anything that's white seems to be missing. Oh yeah, Iceland actually.
Runar, please teach Dan about Scala.
Phone calls.
Yeah, that actually is really perplexing.
And no one in Mexico. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Show us the love.
All right, we're gonna have to head down there.
This
That's
is
what we're gonna have to do.
migrating quickly.
Let's
What else was in these comments down the side?
Okay, so I'm gonna click them and select which ones to answer. Do you guys see this when I click on one?
Yes, I see
Yeah, let's
them.
do it.
Okay, you ready? So this, I'll read them and then we can respond. Does Scaladoc generate an intermediate format, the data, such that formatting could be customized? This is from Victor. I believe the answer is no. It does not have an intermediate format. Is that?
No, well, it's a tree. So I mean, it's yeah. I don't. I mean, it's data in the sense that it's like kind of like some sort of Scaladoc version of an AST, but nothing that there's no hooks into it, and also lots of decisions are basically made on what to make visible and whether or not some implicit or something is here or there. It's not like a DOM sort of tree. It's more like an AST kind of tree. It's not something that I get what he wants, but it's sort of the wrong shape of tree. I think is the answer. So I think the answer is unfortunately no.
Yeah, I think the best tree that it generates right now is actually the DOM. I mean, it's relative to what it used to be, it's significantly more semantic markup than it was. But yeah, I mean, it's certainly not what he wants.
The tree before that though, that would be shared between other Scaladoc tools is called
it's basically like an AST.
AST, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
So there's nothing. So basically, there's the DOM that gets like spit out, and then there's kind of like the AST there's sort of Scaladoc version of the AST that's kind of analyzed, and decisions are made about what to put onto the DOM. But there's nothing in between. I think is.
Yeah, and there used to be an alternative Scaladoc tool that actually just took Scaladoc, took the AST part of Scaladoc, and deleted the rest and redid it, essentially. That was called Scaladoc 2.
Yeah, Scaladoc 2. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
It was a bit like Coke 2, really, wasn't it?
That was a long time ago.
That was, I mean, that one was actually written for RipScript, and you had to use a 28 baud modem to get onto it. That's how old it was.
I don't think it was quite that bad, but that dates back to when Scaladoc looked like JavaDoc, like Java 1.4 era JavaDoc.
Like specifically, yeah, and I think that one led to the new Scaladoc redesign. The new Scaladoc looks really good. Like the usability of it is pretty darn good compared to
what it was.
we used to have. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But people might forget that because it's been so long. Here's a simple question: are you using Enzyme yet? We'll go left to right. So Daniel first.
Yeah.
I am not using it yet. I would like to, but I have not had success using it thus far. So it's definitely one of those where I'm very much sold on the benefits of it. Very, very, very much sold on the benefits of it, and it's a fantastic project. I just haven't had a chance to dig into the weeds again.
Okay. All right, Dick.
I am so it's funny because what's left to right for you is completely the opposite to me. I'm at the end, so I didn't expect to be next. But that's okay.
It's by first name, actually.
Oh, right. Okay. Oh, you're quick. It would have taken me longer to work that out. All right.
Oh, so you should be first because you're Bill. Man, Google
true.
doesn't know what's up.
You keep on calling him the wrong name. Sorry, Bill.
Oh, bite me. I will say that I have it working. I am not working in it yet. I keep I'm baby stepping into it. So I keep getting things. I keep doing a bit in it, and then I'm like, the problem is that particularly after last month of traveling around Europe for the whole of June, I'm still trying to catch up with my various contracts. So as soon as I hit something that holds me up, I'm like, oh, sorry, I've got to go back to IntelliJ here quick to get this done. So yes, but I am at least starting to lower or ease myself down into the cold water and go for a swim. So
nice. Heather?
Yep. So the answer is I used it and I loved it like 2.5 years ago or so. Like I don't know, 3 years ago. I spent a little while back in its last phase of awesomeness. Since then, I've only been peer pressured into considering using it. So I've heard about all the flurry of activity, and I've heard, I mean, not just here, but like at Korean and whatnot, there was lots of people talking about it randomly here and there. About, oh wow, it's been revived. So I've heard about it. I haven't yet hopped over to try it yet. So semi yes, not currently yes.
Gotcha. And I'm lame. I use IntelliJ, and I use VI without any sort of addition to it whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So the hardcore VI, not Vim, but VI.
VI.
You don't even use syntax highlighting. He uses
Edlin.
No, I screen into that crap, and I. Yeah.
Not too much. Screen.
He uses Edlin on a VT 120. or a
I
VT100.
never took the time to learn Tmux, so I only have screen and raw VI skills from when the other two weren't available. So, yeah.
Oh
Anyway,
my gosh.
I would like to try Enzyme. I just I have not yet.
It's
yeah.
every day. Every day it gets a little bit closer, and it's amazing how, like you said, how quickly things are moving right now. It's just very exciting. So I mean, Sublime Text 3, that was a fairly big change because it shifted to Python 3000 for the Sublime Text 3 version. So that was a fairly big change. And they've got a JSON API as well as the eLisp one. What is the eLisp one called? Swank.
Yeah, Swank. The Swank protocol is very arcane.
Yeah.
And if you're not actually sitting on top of Emacs, you have to do a lot of weird emulation. So the JSON protocol is quite nice.
If you had to choose between JSON and Swank, you would always choose Swank from the name alone.
Well, they've called the other one Jerk, which is not necessarily the greatest name, particularly in the Scala space where everybody's a little bit sensitive to names like that. But I think in this case it's a sort of play on words or something.
I'm gonna stick with Jason because he's not a jerk.
Yeah, no, Jason's the nicest guy. He has a great smile, Jason.
Yeah, so instead of JSON 2.0 or JSON 2 as a protocol, we should just call it the retronym format.
So related to this, we have someone who doesn't want to document code, and his name is John Pretty.
Well, I think we all knew that.
Yeah, I mean, this is I've definitely seen his build scripts, and I know that they're undocumented. And by that I haven't actually seen his build scripts. I just give him a hard time all the time. All right, here we go.
A point that I didn't make earlier that I wanted to hit about package documentation is it's a good place to list the implicits that are required to use your API as well. That is something that's not at all obvious in most libraries these days. Just having a list of import these 5 implicits and your life will be easier should be a part of every API like that.
That goes in the readme.md on GitHub.
Yeah, that's true.
Literally, that's what people use that for. Yeah.
Only it usually doesn't. Where is it for futures, for example, that you have to import duration._, for example?
This is also a really significant problem with Scalaz, right? I mean, once you kind of know the paradigm, like you know the convention in Scalaz, it's easy to figure out. Okay, I guess I need this package object over here and this package object over here, and I need to mask out this implicit. But like figuring that out when you're coming into the library is basically impossible, and it most certainly is not just in the README.
Yeah. All right, let's answer a real question. I keep clicking through here on random ones.
Oh, you didn't choose Will's one. Will said hello, so
yeah,
hi, Will.
Hello, Will.
Very good question from Will.
Delayed hello. Yeah.
That was good. I think we dealt with that one.
Okay, here's one. I think it's a fundamental problem that you can't change documentation after library is published. Documentation should evolve independently from code, so you can go back and document the method 3 versions ago was wrong. I remember there actually was like a Scaladoc wiki generator thing that would throw Scaladoc into a wiki and allow you to edit things live and have comments that somebody had worked on.
Wasn't that a Summer of Code thing that never got completed?
No, it got completed because all Summer of Code projects complete, right? So it got completed. There was a demo of it, and no one touched it ever again. So it's sitting in a corner. I actually have a picture of it if you'd like to see it.
I'd say 2 things about this though, taking the comment seriously.
Oh my gosh. No one puts Badger in a corner.
This picture, my God.
So 2 serious comments on John's thing. First of all, I've done pushes. I've done version pushes, point releases that are documentation only in the past. So I can see doing that, revving a version just because you want better documentation. The other one is if you use GH Pages and you link up to it that way, it's pretty easy to push a new version out then. Just use the SBT plugin, generate the new pages, and they're up there for everyone. So
this is back on the topic of having something like a split between API docs and like user guide style things, right? So I mean, the user guide perhaps is a little bit more amenable to changes, whereas if you release your API docs with your code, you're kind of screwed with what's there. So if you have a user guide that you can change over time, then errors that you have in the user guide can also be sort of updated in sort of, in some malleable way, like, relate to the API docs. But I mean, just given the fact that there's this general trend towards compiling code with documentation and making sure it all kind of makes sense, then releasing things with releases. That's sort of a fundamental problem of that style of releasing documentation with code.
That's very true. Yeah, if you stick with 2.1 version and you release a 2.1.1, if people don't update to that, they're not going to see the new documentation, certainly.
It's actually, I'm going to relate this to binary compatibility or compatibility problems in general. We don't write languages that actually track changes over time and know how to deal with them. Like some protocol formats do this. Well, they'll say this was part of this version, this was part of this version, this was part of this version, and they'll actually generate code that handles all the different protocol versions or map between them. But we don't do that in code, and we don't do it in docs. But it's actually relatively, that's a problem that I think exists that should kind of get looked at, honestly.
So I was thinking.
Anyway,
I was thinking relative to Heather's comment that it sort of implies a fundamental distinction between what sort of documentation you want to put in what place. So if you're putting documentation in your code, and your code is part of your release, that documentation is part of your release. That documentation needs to be documenting not really conceptual things or explanations for things that you might come up with a better explanation for, or even usage because you might decide you don't want to use it. It should be documenting nothing more or less than what is there. So Bill touched on this earlier with talking about how trivial versus non-trivial Scaladoc, right? I don't think you want to go much beyond the trivial Scaladoc, right? You want to say what is this, right? What is maybe a more human-readable version of the type? What are the exact pedantic semantics of this function? But don't go beyond that with suggestions of how to use it or anything like that, because that needs to be something that you can modify.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Okay, so real quick, we have a question where it's not a question at all because that word is hard to read, I guess. But John Pretty says, "Can I have a shout out for colon?" Yes, John, you can have a shout out for colon. Yes.
Colon's one of my favorite
awesome.
ASCII characters.
We love that. Is our favorite ASCII character. It helps denote types in Scala.
I was just going to say it's followed by a type, therefore it is an excellent character.
It could be the type though, or the nothing type.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Related. Here's another non-question from John Pretty, where he mentions that Daniel turned 65 and is now a senior citizen.
It is true, and I'm doing that today.
Wow, you are particularly well kept, my friend.
Thank you. Makes you feel bad, doesn't it, Bill?
It does really. Yeah, look at all the grey in my beard.
Yeah, you're 27 or something.
Yeah, well, actually, I only turned 18 last week.
Oh man.
Right. Life's just not very fair, is it?
All right. Okay, so we have one that people have voted for. It says,
wow. People are voting now as well. Holy crap.
Democracy.
We have FYI, a number of people are using Tut to do non-API documentation that is type-checked as part of the build. It's a more principled way to put it in the README. Do you guys, first of all, are you familiar with what Tut is?
Yes, and it is great.
Besides a Steve Martin skit, which is amazing.
And an angry noise that you make when you're upset about something.
Only when you're Bill.
Okay, so for viewers, Tut is a tool that you can actually write documentation with code in it, and it will compile the code. I think it actually compiles the Scaladoc comments, right? So if you have code example in the Scaladoc comment,
no.
It doesn't work in Scaladoc yet.
It's Markdown.
It doesn't work in Scaladoc. Oh,
so what you
Markdown.
do is you write Markdown files that have triple backtick Tut blocks. And then what it will do is it will compile those Tut blocks as Scala code, and it will verify that they compile. If they don't compile, it'll fail your build, unless it's a Tut : fail thing. So you can actually write negative documentation, and you can also have it run them and spit out the output. So if you ever see Markdown files that have a lot of Scala basically emulating the REPL prompt, where rather than just having like a bit of Scala code in the Markdown file, you have like a REPL prompt and like the result after that. Tut may have actually generated that. It's used in a lot of projects. And then what Tut will spit out, in addition to these errors and warnings in your build, is it will spit out Markdown files that you can publish to GitHub pages.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Tut's good. And that's one of the other things that's been thrown around for ages is better integration of that into Scaladoc as an improvement in Scaladoc. There's no shortage of ideas for improving Scaladoc. There's just a shortage of volunteers to do it.
Well, I'd recommend everybody look at Tut because it's actually pretty awesome. I've debated pulling it in on a few projects. Yeah.
Well, one of the problems with Tut right now is that if you're not doing GitHub pages, then it's a little bit less amenable to things, because you actually do have to post-process your Markdown files, or pre-process them rather. But there is a feature request that Rob has spoken highly of, by which I mean he's acknowledged it, that will address this and give kind of a second mode of operation.
So he has two modes. He either totally ignores something, or if he ever mentions it, it is taken as profound approval.
His automated waffle IO has moved it into the pending category.
Yes.
That's what's happened.
So if he ever says our names, then he profoundly approves of everything we say.
Exactly.
Oh, that's outstanding. That's my new goal in life.
I had breakfast with him, I think twice even. And
wow.
Yeah. Oh, you're on the deity list after that.
So that's pretty awesome. Anyway.
Yeah. But no, there's basically a feature request out there to allow Tut to operate just as a check, where rather than actually compiling one Markdown file into another, where your Tut blocks get compiled into Scala blocks, the feature request is to just have Scala blocks so that you can have your Markdown files just in your GitHub repo and people can read them, but you have a build step which looks at those Scala blocks and makes sure that they compile and produce the right output. So you can have it as a check.
All right, so we have three more questions that I think are quick that we should get through.
Let's do it.
I actually have to call it because I have more of a hardish stop here. So let's do the first one. This is the more voted number 2 ask by Rob, which is I'd like to have search by type and a pony. I think we can do the second one.
We'll get you a pony.
Than the first one.
It's on its way. Search by type might take a little bit longer, but would be very nice.
It would be really nice, yeah.
Part of the problem is that Scala types do not have a complete canonical representation. So there's some things that you can represent in an ASCII directly that are very easy, but it's not like, for example, if you want to search for a function that has a particular type class constraint, that's very difficult to do. Like how exactly would you represent that? Even in shorthand, informal shorthand on a whiteboard, people have like 800 different conventions for this.
Well, if you do view source, there are full signatures written as IDs in the DOM. It's just that a lot of the characters that we use to, dictate things in Scala types don't work very well when you're actually trying to search for nodes in the DOM. They're not characters that are recognized or respected.
Or asked.
What was the thing about the remember the joke about the Swiss keyboard that had the one button closer?
It had 3 different underscore characters.
Oh yeah, it had 3 different underscore characters. That's the keyboard you have to use to type in Scala signatures in Scaladoc. Anyway.
Yeah,
so
right. I would love a Hoogle for Scala integrated in Scala.
Well,
that would make me.
Actually, that's the next question, which is Miles Saban asking for Hoogle. Search by
I
signature.
agree. Somebody should get on that right away.
That would be a great project.
Some Hoogler should Hoogle us up.
Yep.
But Scroogle, I don't think is
Oh my
quite
gosh,
Scroogle. Yeah, Scroogle, not such a great name for it.
Yeah. Skagel is not very good either, so maybe we need a different name for that, like just Skirch. There you go.
How about going with the competition and calling it Scaling after Bing?
Oh my god.
Yeah, no, that's really not getting any support. I can tell. All right, never mind.
Never mind. So instead of DuckDuckGo, we could have DuckDuckScala.
Sam Halliday asked if we have an alternative name for Jerk.
I would like to lobby for Josh. as the name?
Oh,
They
okay.
both
I've
start
got,
with the
I've got
J.
a name. I've been thinking about this, so I'd like to call it the Data Access Layer for Enzyme Coding, but spell coding with a K, and that gives you
Dalek?
exterminate.
Yes.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
it's a Doctor Who monster called a Dalek. So
Yeah. So
Yeah,
do you remember
anyway.
back in the day when the scariest sci-fi thing was a trash can that could move and shoot at you?
Yeah, those were the days.
I remember watching a MacGyver episode where he goes into a high-tech facility and he basically throws a flaming wad of trash at the trash can to blow it up. It was amazing.
Yeah, that sounds like MacGyver.
That's what every scary robot was, and I love those days. Those are great shows. All right. Anyway, related to the alternative name for jerk, I was going to say in my house we don't call it beef jerky, we call it beef Joshy. Just so you know.
I think jerk's okay, but if anybody does come up with a better name and send it in, we'll happily pass them along.
All right.
I think yeah. All right.
Victor Klang says duck duck type.
Yeah.
As the Hoogle for Scala.
Yeah, I like that. I like it. That's actually a really good suggestion. All right. All right, and then Rob Norris has one more ask, which was documenting all the Scaladoc, including weird flags, options, diagram generation.
Oh yeah, I mean seriously, raise your hand if you know that the euro symbol is what you need to do to link to your source code. Where is that documented?
That's a paid-for feature. I don't know.
It is. There is now actually a Scaladoc section in Scala Lang which covers some of this. It's far from perfect, but I know because I wrote it. And there's even a screencast on there that shows you how to use it, a little bit at least. The features that I was able to find. So there is some stuff out there. Improvements are always welcome.
I think that he means mostly like if you're a doc. So you were talking about like the interface in this podcast. I think Rob makes the point of, how the heck do I make Scaladoc generate that fancy graph or
I see the flags and options. Yeah.
Scaladoc or whatever it is the Scaladoc doc or whatever it is.
That's missing. Yep, somebody should do that.
Yeah.
At some point, I'll stick it on my list, and some point in the next millennium, it might get done. But if anybody wants to contribute it in the meantime, I'm sure it would be welcome. So. All right.
And we had one last question pop up, which is again not a question at all. But Sam Halliday said they're going to name it Jerky and Swanky now. So
Jerky and Swanky, it's like the Itchy and Scratchy show.
We've changed the names, guys. It's no longer Swank and Jerk. It's now Jerky and Swanky.
Scalawags, the podcast of influence.
We are Y men, I guess.
Oh my God.
It's a shame my Dalek idea didn't take off. I had hopes for that one.
I like Dalek. That's pretty good. It's pretty good. I think Evil Trash Can from the Future is the name of my next band and/or Scala project. So. All right.
Can I do a very quick PSA, because I know we're running very short of time, but I did want to let people know this is kind of important. I think I've mentioned before, we've started the slip and sip processing back up again. Things are rolling there. We actually in the last meeting, which was a few days ago, we cleared the backlog of various SIPs that have been sitting in a queue for a while, and there's a bunch of action items. This stuff is going to be up very shortly on a Scala Lang site blog post, which I'm writing right now, and we're looking for volunteers if you want to help out. And in particular, I've read a couple of things just the last couple of days of people saying it would be really nice if we could just vote on this stuff. And my response to that, I don't know about you guys, is voting's not going to cut it. If you want to see this stuff happen, volunteer, help us out, man. It's too easy to stick a +1 on something. If you're committed to actually get this stuff through, there is tons of work to do. So jump in.
I'm sorry, Josh. Just +1 that. Josh just +1.
Yeah, +1 that, Josh. Good man, Josh.
Yeah. No, yeah. Volunteer. It's fun.
Volunteer,
It's
please.
fun and rewarding. So yeah.
Actually,
All right,
it's
guys.
really you may have oversold it. It's kind of fun. The reward part is that you maybe get to feel a bit of warm and fuzzy in yourself. Don't overplay those parts, but it will be very welcome.
Don't overplay the reward. It depends on your own internal sense of reward, I guess.
There may be stickers one day. We still cling to the vague hope that there could be stickers at some point.
Stickers.
Do it for stickers, man. Do it for the stickers.
Yeah. Nice.
That relies on us
Nice.
getting a design and actually getting some stickers printed up, but who knows? Maybe one day we'll get there. In the meantime, you'll get a wonderful, warm, fuzzy feeling from helping. Trust me.
Well, once we have duck type, then we can actually make that be the sticker. So it'll be good.
I like duck type. That's a pretty
Yeah.
good name for it.
All right, guys. I think
All right.
it's time to head out. And thank you everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you all next time.